Hey y'all, so today we are going to be turning this Unicorno into Superman, again just like the one on my banner. First you need to soften the vinyl by soaking it in hot water in order to remove the head to make it easier to paint. And this does need to soak for a couple minutes. I usually leave mine for about 3. And usually it tugs off pretty easy. Usually I use these needle pliers to get the Unicorn out with, and I always grab it by the leg so it won't leave too many marks. If I grab it by a thinner piece, the teeth of the pliers would leave marks. Now, notice how I said usually a while ago that the heads are easy to tug off? This is a Unicorn from Series 3. Usually those are the easiest to take off. I've customized a lot of these things, and usually those heads come off fairly easy, and like in the last one I had to rip the peg apart. Usually these come like clean off. This one did not. I soaked it 3 times, separate times, tried to tug it off every time, and I ended up having to rip it just like I did the Wonder Woman because it would not come out. I don't know what was wrong with this one, but it was just stubborn as crap, man. But I did finally get it off. I just had to do it the less clean way. We're going to try this one from a different angle, guys, so hopefully I can be able to show you guys the whole process and I won't have to work around the camera. So we're going to see how well this worked. So you have to take off all the factory paint with 100% pure acetone. You can use regular nail polish remover, it'll just take you a lot longer. And this one, the paint came off fairly easy, but you can see there on my glove, it did come off really easy. And that's what I was talking about when you start playing with acetone. Now, if you go with a Q-tip, like I've seen most customizers do, it'll be a lot cleaner. You won't make it, it won't get all over your hands. But it'll take a lot longer, and sometimes you have those little threads from the cotton stuck to it. So I just find this is easier just to like soak it in it. But yeah, if you get that stuff on your hands, the only way to remove it is with the acetone. It will not come off with soap and water. Once everything is mostly paint-free, if I can talk, it'd be nice. Once it's paint-free, you can start adding your own paint. Now, obviously this Unicorno was dark blue in color, most of it. So since we're painting the blue part a flesh tone, the peachy color, we will have to paint white over it so that the flesh tone will take a lot easier, so you won't have to use as many coats. White will cover up pretty much anything. I think I had to use about, I want to say 2 to 3 coats to get it opaque on the face before I put on the peach color. But I only had to use 1 coat of the peach after that, so depends on which paint color you want to waste the most, I guess. But if you just went straight to the peach color, you would be using a lot more coats than just the, 3 or 4 in total. And if you guys are wondering, that's not a weapon in the frame. That's just where I keep my X-Acto knife. And I just labeled it so people would know that it's not a pair of glasses. And you might want to keep your paint bottles as clean as possible so you don't have to use tools to open it. Like I do, I literally keep those things right next to where I paint so I can have them. Because I suck at cleaning that stuff off. I always forget. So instead of painting the body white, since most of it's still going to be blue, I just went ahead and started painting the bottom part of his costume red, along with his boots. And this took several coats. It would have been easier if I used white on those areas first, but I figured, what the heck, I'll just do it like this. And it took about 5 coats, I want to say. And I did switch to that angled brush like I showed you guys in the last video, and I'm sure you'll be seeing it in this video too at some point, to get around the hooves and the, to paint the boots. That thing is amazing. Seriously, if you guys paint any small figures of any kind, get an angled brush. They're more expensive, but they are worth it. And by the way, guys, that was Flag Red from Apple Barrel. Yeah, that's the brand of the paint that I use. This is Sunkissed Peach for the skin tone. And again, I just needed really one solid coat. I went back with another round in some areas to brush it on a little bit more thick, where you could still see some of the dark blue seep through where the white paint didn't really get it. But yeah, you can, even though I'm using a regular size bottle, you can buy white in like bulk sizes, which is what I'll be getting next as soon as that one runs out. That way the white paint is cheaper. So it's really better to cover it up with white instead of going in with the color, so you won't be wasting all the colored paint. So here's where I tried something new. I told you guys before, the most frustrating part is the eyes for me, because I can never get them symmetrical, and sometimes I try to wash off the black paint in order to correct it. The only problem with that, the black does leave marks on the skin tone of the face, so it ends up having to cover up the black streaks, and then it just looks a lot messier in the end. So I thought I'd give this a try and put one coat of my matte sealant on the face before I paint the eyes on. I just thought that would work better, and it actually did. I ended up not having to erase a whole eye like I usually do. It actually turned out semi-decent this time, but I still had to erase some of it on the end, or not erase, but wash off some of it. I don't think I filmed that part, but it did work a lot better. I still had to cover it up a little bit, but it looked a lot less messy than it usually did, so I'll have to start using this method from now on. And now to use just plain black for the face, or the hair and the mane and the tail rather. You see I was able to muscle through that one. And if you guys notice, I'm not speeding through this video. I'm not speeding up any of the clips this time, because I figure you guys can get a good gist of it just from a little part of it. If you guys liked it better the last time for my Wonder Woman where I sped it up a little bit, tell me and I'll gladly do it for the next one. The next one's not Batman. Just so you know, I was going to do Batman, but then something came up and I had to get another figure done. So yeah, it'll be a little bit of a wait for Batman if you guys were wondering about that. But he is coming. I promise you, he is coming. And this only took one coat for the mane. I think I filmed it later on. I did not paint the tail at this point because I was still honestly putting a few more layers of the red on there while I was painting this. So I just was going to wait until pretty much the end to paint the tail. So these things are small sponge tips. I used them in the last video, and I use them to cover up mistakes. So when the black goes on to the face, I use those to paint it over with because it puts a lot of paint on a small space, and it covers it up a lot more. And yes, I do use those to paint up the, fix the face when I smear the black paint fixing the eyes, but it still looks horrible. So yeah, definitely gonna have to start using that matte finish on the face from now on. But these are branded Tester, I think they are. I finally figured out what they were. I can't remember the actual name, but that was the brand, and they were in the section with all the rest of the paint stuff at Hobby Lobby. And right here, going back with that peach tone to paint the hands, since Superman does not wear gloves. Since this was such a small area, I didn't bother with the white because I was able to dab on a pretty, not super thick, but a thick enough layer the first time that I didn't really see the need to put the white on there first. When it's a small enough space, you don't really need to, because you can just dab it on and it'll still look pretty good. And now for the top half of his costume. Now, some of you guys might be thinking it was blue already. Why do I have to cover it up with more blue? Really, truly, that the the factory paint one stained the figure a little bit. You can kind of see it in the camera, not really, but trust me, it did. And it wasn't the right shade of blue, but luckily, because it was blue underneath, it didn't really take that many coats. I think it only took 2 to make it opaque. So first I'm going around the hands really steadily with that angled brush. Or am I? No, that's not the angled brush. Never mind. With a thin brush first. Just so I don't mess up the hands when I'm actually painting it. And that is the color bright blue. And like I said, it did take 2 coats. The only part I didn't paint blue this time was the tights, the little space between the red and the red part of his outfit and the boots. I was just waiting a little bit for that part so I could have a more steady hand. If I paint for a little while, guys, my hands get really shaky and I have to stop because the line will get really, really wobbly. So when I skipped that part, I just waited a little bit longer before I did it. I don't know why I waited so long. I could have just done it as soon as my hands stopped shaking, but I do things the hard way sometimes. And now for those eyes. Now, I actually did film myself painting the majority of the eyes this time, unlike when I did with Wonder Woman. And you guys will see some of it here. But again, you just start by painting a small circle on one side and painting one, well, going out until you think it's a pretty good size for the eye, and then try to mimic it the best you can on the other. And I didn't put eyelashes on him because, guys, if you guys collect Funko or Toki Doki figures like these, look at them. Apparently, toy factories or toy companies don't believe that boys have eyelashes for some reason. I don't know, but that's usually one way you can tell if a figure is supposed to be a boy or a girl. The guys don't have eyelashes, so I just go with it. The eyelashes are a pain to paint anyway, so when I have a guy character, I don't bother with them either. Now I'm using that angled brush. I do use it a lot more than I think I do. I just reach for it when I need a small brush or, get into a small crack or crevice and I don't really think about it. But here is where I'm painting the tights. Like I said, I don't know why I didn't do this before I did the eye just to make it more cohesive, but I didn't. But you guys can kind of see there in the clip that the bright blue paint is a lot more vibrant than just the undertone of the resin they used, or plastic, or whatever you want to call it that they used. So if you guys are painting a figure that's the same color as the base, I would go ahead and just paint on a layer of the color anyway, just to make it look more new, look more pretty, look more vibrant. So yeah. And now for the white part of the eye. Like I said, I don't know why I didn't do this in order to make it more cohesive, and the reason I didn't edit it that way is just because I'm lazy. But I just do things the way I want to, I guess. So I put a pretty good sized layer of white on it. You want to make sure that the part closest to the ear is opaque. It doesn't really matter about the part closer to the end of the face, because that's going to be covered up with the color and the color of the eye, the iris, and the pupil. But that back part you want to get opaque. Usually it only takes about, sometimes 1 coat, sometimes 2, depending. But you can see I'm using my smallest brush, the angled brush, to pretty much dab it on pretty thickly. And I don't think I filmed it, either that or I accidentally erased it. With me, it was probably the latter. But I don't think I filmed myself or showed myself painting the iris. For that one, Superman does have blue eyes, but I want it to be a little bit different than the blue on his outfit, and also different from Wonder Woman's eyes. For Wonder Woman, I mixed the bright blue color with white. With Superman, I mixed it with black to make it a darker blue. And I don't really think you can see it next to the pupil, but trust me, it's there. I promise you, it's there. And we're switching back to the body again. So here I am using a pencil to draw on the shape of Superman's crest before I paint it in. That's usually a smart thing to do when you're working with different shapes, to just draw it on lightly with a pencil first. You can use a marker, but you can't do that. You can't erase. And this pencil is pretty dark, which is good with that paint. So you want to try and get a pencil that's dark enough that you can see it, but yet light enough that you can still erase it. And I don't know why. Okay, maybe I did. Okay, I did show myself doing the iris, because that's what I'm doing now, isn't it? Huh, okay. When I was putting the footage together, I didn't notice that. So I totally lied a while ago. Why I didn't just pick up the white paint and start painting the crest when I drew it, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. Literally, guys, when I paint, I just do what I think and don't really pay much attention to it besides getting the lines as perfect as I can, which for me ain't that perfect. But as long as you have fun doing it, that's what counts. Now this stuff, it was pretty old. I used this color for another custom, which is why I like using those paint pots. And you can find those in like kids paint sets. I found those on Amazon's in bulk pack. They keep the paint pretty usable for a very long time. I want to say I mixed that paint up about a month or two ago. It's been a while. I had to stir it up a little bit, and it was a little bit thinner than I liked, but I was still able to use it. I think I've had to put about 2 coats to make the color opaque. And again, you want to make sure you're getting the part closest to the ear solid, not really care about the part that's towards the face. So unlike with Wonder Woman, where I was working around the camera and couldn't really show you guys me using a toothpick to paint, here I can. So plus for the new angle. So I did use a toothpick to outline or go over the pencil part because, a brush would be wider and it wouldn't get it as exact as I would like. So I did use a toothpick first, but then I did go in and paint, use a brush to paint or color it in pretty much. If I can talk, it would be really nice. You guys can tell I don't script this. Can anyone guess that by now? I don't like to script things. So it's more work and less genuine. So you guys have to suffer with me stumbling over my words. Hopefully you find it a little bit entertaining though. But I did color it in so that the lighter color would go on better afterwards. Real quick, here is me painting the tail black, finally. And again, it did take 2 coats to eliminate the brush strokes from it. This time I actually did have a reason for not going straight and finishing up the shield. I was waiting for the white paint to dry, so this time I actually had a legitimate excuse for going on to another part first. And since I had the black paint out, I went straight for the pupil next. This part is always the easiest. It only takes about 1 coat, and if you find yourself you're looking at it and you think you made part of the iris or part of the white part of the eye a little bit too wobbly, go back in with a toothpick and just clean around the edges with the black. It'll clean up really easy. Now I'm going to use this bright yellow. I think it's something daffodil, I don't know. A bright yellow color for the shield. I am going over the entire white part with this yellow, which is why I use the white part. The lighter the color, other than white, the lighter the color, the harder it will be to make it show up on a darker surface. So again, use the white paint to your advantage. And this only did take 1 coat. Using that same yellow color, I go in and make the belt. Y'all, if you Google Superman costumes, the man went through a lot of belts. I don't know why, But he went through a lot of different style belts, and I just went with the one that I felt would be easiest to paint and therefore look better on the figure. So I'm using that stylus, what I call a dotting tool, to make the buckle of the belt. And you can see I'm going pretty slow to try and make the circle as perfect as possible. Obviously it has to be, it's the belt buckle, so it's a little bit bigger than the head of the stylus. But I am using it instead of a brush just because it'll come out a lot cleaner when you're working with smaller circles. And then I switched to my small angled brush to start making the belt to go around it. And the picture I referenced, for some reason, had belt loops on the part where, you know, the outside underwear thing that Superman does. Or Superman started, I should say. But yeah, I tried to make the yellow dashes as even and as symmetrical as possible. A little bit hard with the wings, but I think it looked okay in the end. And here is me using the dotting tool for the purpose that I usually use it for, the highlights in the eyes. My original Superman, which I actually think I show it here in a little bit in the edge because I was using it for reference. I did put 2 highlights in that one, and I didn't think it looked as good, honestly, so I just did it with 1, and I thought it looked a lot better, but you guys can choose which way you want. So here I am using a toothpick to make the red outline around the crest, because, you know, Superman's Superman's crest is outlined in red, and then I also use it to draw the S, which for me kind of looks more like a 5, but my writing sucks, y'all. I'm way better at painting than I am at writing, or at least, yeah, printing. So yeah, but it still looks good in the end, and I try to fix it as best I can. Now here I am busting out that same Suguru stuff that I used for my Wonder Woman custom to make the cape. Now if you are doing something small like this and thick, like a cape, like the cape I'm making is, you could use air dry clay, but again, I just like to use this stuff because it's more, it's less fragile. Let me put it that way. It's a lot less fragile. Yet it's still super easy to carve away if you need to. And you guys can tell I'm doing this over the several days because I keep switching shirts in these clips. I do have a life where I'm doing other stuff besides sitting here painting these things. So I just quickly sculpt out the shape of the cape as best I can. And again, one of the drawbacks in using this stuff, it has to dry for a long time. And I don't know if I filmed it or not. I guess we'll see just with the iris a while ago. But I actually did this in the beginning of the day. I should have did it right before I went to bed the previous night so I wouldn't have to wait as long. But later on that day, I did come back and pretty much doing what I'm trying to do there with a toothpick, trying to round out the bottom of it so it looks like more wavy in the wind. Instead, there with it still wet, I kind of made it look just clumpy instead. But Suguru is super easy to carve away, guys. Super easy to carve away once it's fully cured. Which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. So I'm pretty much taking the excess Suguru. This stuff does not keep. I tried putting it in a Ziploc once. Yeah, didn't work. It still dried out and made hard, and I couldn't use it. So instead what I do, I take it and I flatten it against a piece of plastic that I can easily cut it away. Afterwards, I just take my X-Acto knife and raise a part of it up, and then I just peel it off from the side of the Tupperware thing. And then you have a nice flat piece of Suguru that you can cut stuff out of later when you need it. Once the Suguru has fully cured, you can then paint it. Now I told you guys that the paint does separate on this thing because it's rubber. So I put a layer of super glue on it first just to see if it would help, like it did with the Wonder Woman. But on this one, I noticed more that the glue itself separated. So it didn't really help that much. You can see this is the first layer coming on. It's going on a lot better than it normally would. But there was still a lot of separating, or at least more than I would like. So I think for my future customs, when I'm using this stuff, I'm going to just put a thin layer of baking powder or baking soda, whatever you want to call it, over the piece before I start painting it. But this did take about 4 coats to get it opaque. And then, after all of that is done, now you can see the cape is still wet, so if you do it like this, be careful not to, ruin the paint. But I was impatient. After everything is painted, it is time to reattach the head to the body. Again, I use gloves when using super glue just to keep it from getting on my skin, because it's hard to get off. So you just brush on a little bit of the super glue and hold it in place. Hold the head in place. While I still held the head to the body, I went ahead and put a little bit of super glue on a toothpick and started going around the neck, just for a little extra security. And after it's all complete, the only thing left to do is to coat it in sealant. Again, I told you guys in the last video, that's not medicine, that's glue. So it's matte varnish, Mod Podge matte varnish mixed with water. Do your own experimenting until you get the right matte finish that you like. You notice mine's still a little bit shiny, and I'm okay with that. It's just not as shiny as it used to be before I started using the water, so I'm happy. But when you use enough water, you can get it like a true matte. It just takes a lot of experimenting. And I usually put about 3 coats on these figures. And there is the completed Superman custom. If you guys like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And be prepared, because the next one is not Batman. It's actually a surprise, but Batman is coming, I promise. We'll go through all the ones on the banner. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.